This story on the surface is a right-winger's dream come true. It fits the narrative pretty well of the right wing in this country as it stands this late date, and this administration's stance against immigration, and the fact that this story includes government fraud perpetrated allegedly by an immigrant community or a group of immigrants targeting the state of Minnesota, which is run by a Democrat governor, Tim Walz, who the Trump administration obviously has been targeting for a while now. This story fits everything perfectly. Basically, let me give you the rundown of what happened. So there is a concerned citizen in Minneapolis. He goes by the name of David to protect his identity. And he allegedly started noticing some anomalies at daycares around where he lives or where he commutes. He drives by, and he started noticing like he doesn't see many kids here. And he's like, this is really odd. Like these are supposed to be daycares. I don't see any kids. This is weird. So he got in contact with this right-wing YouTuber named Nick Shirley. And they put a little squad together to go visit a few daycares to try to do some investigative journalism and find out and get to the bottom of what's going on with these daycares. So they got a film crew together and they some people together, and they went around to several daycares in the area that they suspected were some shenanigans was going on. And they started asking them and prodding them with questions about where are the kids, where's all this money going? I want to check in my kid in here. Hey, let us in. Why won't you let us in? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Nick Shirley, the podcaster, YouTuber, he made a 42-minute video basically highlighting all of this, and went up, everywhere. It got retweeted by Elon. It got retweeted by JD Vance within like a day or two, and it went viral pretty quickly. He posted it on December 26th, so the day after Christmas, just a few days ago, and it has already blown up. Let me show you guys a CBS report that actually highlights this pretty well. And we also have another video to show you after that where CNN confronts Nick Shirley.
This is ABC Learning Center in Minneapolis.
They have to learn ABC and numbers.
Director Ahmed Hassan gave WCCO a tour after finding his daycare in the national spotlight.
All right, we've arrived to ABC Learning Center.
In a now viral video, right-wing YouTuber Nick Shirley claims nearly a dozen daycare centers in Minnesota are taking public funds but not providing a service. He says ABC Learning Center is one of them, knocking on the door in mid-December.
I would like to check a child in the daycare.
Hassan says his employee didn't respond because Shirley was in a group of about 8 people, and his staff were concerned about recent ICE activity.
Is this daycare committing fraud?
No, we're not committing fraud.
Hassan showed us security footage from the same day Shirley was here. According to the timestamps in the videos, this woman takes a young child into the center at around 9 a.m. that day, about 3 hours before Shirley arrives at the door closer to the street. Within the hour after Shirley leaves, a woman arrives at the other door with a stroller. A larger family heads inside a few hours later. Tuesday afternoon, WCCO found at least a dozen children at ABC Learning Center, which is licensed with the state. Records show Minnesota officials last visited the daycare in November, noting some corrected and ongoing violations related to day-to-day operations, but no record of fraud.
What did I do? I'm just a typical human being who wants to live and do the right thing. I have kids to feed.
Umi Hassan, the daycare's current owner, believes these latest fraud accusations are political. Both she and Hassan are Somali Americans.
We pay our taxes. We do whatever we can to be a law-abiding citizen. At the same time, when one Somali does something wrong, we all get collective punishment.
With Shirley's video now approaching 2.3 million views on YouTube alone, they say they are getting non-stop phone calls harassing them.
I was looking for a place for my granddaughter.
With many of those calls attached to out-of-state phone numbers.
They normally say, knock, knock, we're going to come. Yep. You're going to arrest, something like that.
Hassan says they turned over attendance records to comply with the Department of Homeland Security request. They're now waiting to hear back.
So yeah, after seeing that clip, I can definitely see what you mean, Emmanuel, about this checking a lot of boxes. You've got brown Muslim immigrants, you've got crime, you've got government spending or waste or fraud, You've got Democrat city or states, especially with Tim Walz, like you mentioned, being targeted. He ran against Trump. Trump hates this guy. And then I think the most important thing underneath it all is you've got conspiracy, either conspiracy among multiple daycares or conspiracy with multiple daycares and the state government. And these, MAGA loves their conspiracies. And they're not really well known for fact checking their conspiracies. So to see them kind of dive in and bite into this is not that big of a surprise. I think this report from CBS does a pretty good job of at least debunking, at least one daycare. I don't know how much they really dug into the others, other than mentioning that multiple of them are licensed. But, that main one about I think it was like the ABC daycare center, if ICE is coming around kidnapping people, then obviously there's concern when somebody shows up with cameras and, it seems to be trying to get into the building instead of trying to just, hello, hi, I have a child. Like he doesn't even have a kid with him and things like that. So I can understand why they would be wary to let him in or refuse entry. And then the owners presented their own video proof showing with their cameras of people coming in. And then you also had the news organization there, CBS, in the building as children were present. And then they mentioned that the building is licensed and that the state officials last visited in November, which is less than 30 days from when the video was made. So all of this is to say, it sounds like this is a very legitimate operation, at least in that particular daycare. And yeah, I think that it's alarming to see how quickly things jump off to the deep end with the right.
Yeah, I just want to highlight how quickly all of this unfolded. I mean, Nick Shirley posted his, investigative video, the 42 minutes that kicked off this whole storm, on the 26th of December, the day after Christmas. We're now January 2nd, just a few days later, and it's already everywhere. And it's already gotten the attention of local news that have already visited and done an investigation, at least in this particular case, on one daycare. All of this has happened within a span of, a week? That's pretty crazy. Just a few days. It just shows you how early we are into uncovering what supposedly Nick Shirley and David have uncovered. The actual journalism has actually now just begun. So we're going to see, I think, in quite short order, how much of what they're alleging is actually true and how much is completely out of the wind. And CNN has begun that process, and they actually visited Nick Shirley and spoke to him.
This is MAGA YouTuber Nick Shirley. Back at a daycare in Minnesota, he alleged was a fraudulent facility in a now viral video.
People are going to say this is a left or right issue, but no, fraud is fraud. And so I'm not out here trying to put a twist on things.
Shirley's viral video, released over the weekend, in which he says he's uncovering tens of millions of dollars in fraud at Minneapolis daycares run by the Somali community, was retweeted by Elon Musk and Vice President J.D. Vance. In the video, Shirley tries to open locked doors and talk to people at various daycares he claims are frauds.
Did you come during their normal operating hours when you came to visit?
I came at 11 a.m., I believe, and I also came the following day later in the day. The point of it is not whether or not I came at the right time of their operation hours. The point is that blacked out doors, they can't give you any information. You call that number, no one answers. I wasn't trying to go inside, and there should be a way for somebody to actually be able to call that number and somebody be able to answer. These aren't real businesses.
But surely you don't think a daycare should just be unlocked. You shouldn't be able to just walk into a
There
daycare.
should be a reception.
No, every daycare is locked.
Their doors are locked.
And so, okay, you bring up a fair point. Then why can't they actually give me information how to enroll a child?
Federal law enforcement has been investigating fraud in Minnesota for several years. Both Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel said on social media they've indicted dozens of defendants. DHS has posted multiple videos of agents they say are conducting a massive fraud investigation.
Do you think that federal law enforcement hasn't done enough? I mean, they would say, look, these fraud cases have been going on, but they've already done like 80 indictments. The cases have been going on, for years.
And why did I show up one day in Minnesota and go to all these daycares, no children? They're receiving millions of dollars. We uncovered nearly $110 million in fraud in one day.
How do you know that all the allegations that you're making are true?
How do I know that they're true? Well, we showed you guys what was happening, and then you guys can go ahead and make your own analysis.
We're coming so we can make our own analysis. Are you 100% sure you're true?
Yeah, I am 100% sure I'm true.
CNN is looking into Shirley's claims.
Hi, my name's Whitney Wild. I'm a correspondent for CNN.
We reached out to several of the daycares featured in the now viral video. Only one daycare facility answered and said they are a legitimate business.
Have you seen the videos, purporting that some of these daycares don't have kids inside?
Minnesota Republicans say despite the new focus from the Trump administration, they have been sounding the alarm on fraud for years.
We have talked about fraud. We have gotten stories. We've tried to push this forward every way that we can.
At the daycare where Shirley showed back up, a stream of children walk inside.
You're saying that this is a fraudulent daycare. There's kids being dropped off right now.
Yes. The Commissioner of Children literally said a week ago this place was closed.
Did you know
They're
that?
showing face right now.
A viral video, disputed claims, and their full fallout remains to be seen.
Whitney, you mentioned in your story that there were dozens of convictions going back to 2022. Can you explain what those convictions established?
Well, this was really the beginning of this massive fraud case that has now led to more than 50 convictions, 56 people at least convicted as of September of this year, Jim. At least 78 people have been indicted in that case. It was this sprawling investigation that, DOJ has really touted as their effort to try to root out what is a fraud problem here in Minnesota, Jim.
And then, of course, that many of them did begin a number of years ago. Whitney Wild, good to have you there. Thanks very much.
There is fraud going on in Minnesota. It's been going on for some time now. And guess who's been getting to the bottom of that? The Biden administration. In fact, between 2022 and 2024, they charged over 70 people in connection to Minnesota fraud cases and convicted around 50 of those people, based on fraud allegations, pled guilty to these charges. One of the biggest cases was involving a firm called Feeding Our Future, where the leader of that firm, Amy Bach, was convicted at trial in March of 25. Why didn't we hear about this, you think, as much as we're hearing about these allegations that are going on now? Well, Amy Bach happens to be a white lady. Mike, we heard these reports from CBS and CNN confronting Nick Shirley, but it seems like the right wing is making a huge storm and buzz about these Minnesota fraud claims, like seemingly overnight, all of a sudden, yet not a peep from them about the fraud that's been going on since at least 4 years ago from today. So what is going on here? Why are we only hearing about fraud now and not even from the trial where a lady was convicted, one of the high-profile trials during Trump's presidency, March of 2025, just a few months ago? Amy Bach convicted of fraud, pled guilty, the evidence and everything proven. Why did we not hear a peep about that? And why are we only hearing about it now, you think, Mike?
Well, I think the answer is obvious. It's all about the narrative. We just recently bombed Somalia while we were bombing Nigeria. You've got Trump calling out Somalians on Truth Social and things like that. So there's clearly a narrative being built against Somalians. They're sort of the new, I would say, the thing that it reminds me of is they're the kind of the new Haitians of Springfield, Ohio, being targeted with the whole "they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs" scandal. And that turned out to be bogus. But it doesn't matter, because after the president pushed that narrative, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was created by J.D. Vance himself. I know that he was on the news and they asked him about, why would you push something that's not true? And he says, sometimes you have to bring up things that are fake to get people to talk about things that are real. So already, there's major red flags all over the place. But this reminds me a lot of that whole thing back during the debates, because you have the same thing where you've got a minority community being targeted with a false story or a misleading story. And the result is wild, outlandish outrage and then backlash. You've got death threats. And as we saw in this video from CNN, you've got people calling in that are out of state that are making threats and things like this. So this is unfortunately nothing new. But I think the reason why we're hearing about it now is because it fits the narrative almost to a T. The only thing that would make it even better is if it was like, Somali trans people or something. That's like the one element that they're missing. But I just want to highlight a few things from this report from CNN. On screen, they showed two tweets side by side, one from Pam Bondi, one from Kash Patel. And I think that it's very interesting, as you mentioned, with these convictions going back all the way to 2022 and how the Biden administration has actually charged, I believe you said it was like over 50 or possibly even over 70. I think it was 50 individuals in this. In Pam Bondi's tweet, she was taking credit for that by lumping it in with what they're doing now. And again, even if an indictment was served during the Biden administration, that doesn't necessarily mean that Biden was able to convict. The convictions could still happen under Trump. But the process has already been started. The evidence has already been gathered. The case has already been made. So again, we just had a case with Pam Bondi that we talked about in a previous video recently, where Pam Bondi is trying to pass off Biden's work as Trump's work or their own work. So this is another example of that. And then you had a tweet from Kash Patel talking about how, vulnerable children will always be a priority of the FBI, blah, blah, blah. But with the Epstein files, that's clearly not their priority, even though that's all about vulnerable children. So no matter which way you look at it, it doesn't look good for this administration. They're clearly just kind of, I don't want to say covering up, but it's all smoke and mirrors. It's all nothing. And some other points that I want to bring up specifically about this report is I love how they asked this guy, how do you know it's true? Are you sure you're 100% what you're saying is true? And he asked them, how do I know it's true? Well, because I just told you guys, and you can make up your own analysis. Like, in what world does that count as truth? And this always reminds me of the Kellyanne Conway alternative facts thing with Trump, where people can just assert things as true, whether it's true or not. And then they can just say, hey, man, I'm just asking questions, or, hey, this is just what I think. This is my analysis. You can make up your own mind. And by that lens, you can give credibility to anything. I mean, people think the earth is flat, and we can't have a flat earth and a round earth. But apparently in their viewpoint, you can, because, hey, this is what I think, and you make up your own mind. And, facts don't care about your feelings, as the famous saying says. So that kind of just blew my mind wide open when he says that, because it just shows he doesn't truly care about the truth. He just cares about clicks. He cares about making money, because he's definitely monetizing all this. And he's also a right-wing guy, so he's clearly also invested in advancing the narrative and getting in with whatever connections and circles and orbits he's already in, or trying to gain prominence and things like that, clout chasing. So I think that's certainly at the core of all of this that people need to pay attention to and keep in mind. But then it's just also funny that as they're speaking to him, children are being ushered into the building, like, behind them. And so I know that he said, oh, this is them just trying to save face, but it's just like, dude, Occam's razor, like, if you have a daycare center that's taking children in, and you have reports of that, like CBS report of like children already going into these other places, then like maybe you should double check, especially if you only went there once. Like, I don't know. We don't know how frequently he went to these places. I know in the beginning of the report, he mentioned he came to one building twice, and he didn't even clarify if he was there during open hours, business hours. They specifically asked, was it during business hours? And he didn't give a yes or no. He just said, I was here at this time and I was here at that time. And then he said, but either way, it doesn't matter. The point is like their doors are locked. And it's like, yeah, dumbass, like daycares lock their doors. That's a matter of safety. So I think that's all very interesting. And unfortunately, his tactic is already spreading. I saw a thing earlier today from Brian Krasenstein, who was tweeting about another right-wing guy in, I think it was Philadelphia, who went to a daycare there to kind of blow that scandal open as being a nationwide conspiracy, not just one in Minnesota, not just one in this one town, but it's a nationwide conspiracy of daycares. And this guy went there explicitly when they were off hours. You know, their website even said, we are closed this entire week because of the holidays. We close after 2 p.m. And he went there after 2 p.m. And sure enough, like, oh, nobody's answering the door. It must be a conspiracy. It must be, you know, this is all a hoax or a sham or something like that. And it's just like, you've got this thing spreading and it's all bogus. But I think you brought up a great point earlier, though, Emmanuel, about this has only been 1 week. So you've got CBS reporting on it locally, and you've got CNN, which is national coverage, coming in, and also not only being able to do a little bit of their own reporting on it as well, but also to dig deeper into the actual fraud cases that have been happening, and presenting information on that, as well as getting a hold of this guy, Shirley, and talking to him, as you know, to his face as well. And he, not once in that video. Now, again, you know, CNN, they control the editing, but like, I didn't hear him once provide any level of like fact or source or something tangible. It was all pure speculation. It's just him assuming and asserting and then telling people, look, you make your mind up. I did my job. And it's just like, yeah, but you're sitting back and cashing in on this misinformation.